When humanity was first discovered, the shock rippled through the bureaucracy. After all, it's not every day that a supposedly well-run interstellar alliance somehow overlooks an entirely new sentient race, inside its own territory. Admittedly, the region where Earth was located had long been dismissed as an underdeveloped backwater, but with the amount of radio noise the humans were hurling into space like a child flinging pebbles into a lake, the oversight was unforgivable. But humans weren't waiting around for explanations. By the time we caught on, they'd already decrypted our language and begun dissecting our political systems and economic hierarchies with clinical obsession. Apparently, they'd been eavesdropping for over a year. Fortunately, the Galactic Protocol had contingency measures, typically deployed when pre-FTL civilizations break through. Humanity was offered a 100 light-year bubble around their homeworld, a buffer zone to give them room to grow. Too bad nearly a third of it overlapped with space already claimed by the Karkans. But we'll get to that mess later. When our envoys finally made formal contact, the surprises kept coming. Earth hovered at the extreme edge of the theorized gravity threshold for developing spacefaring life. Any stronger, and early rockets would have sputtered before leaving orbit, their civilization likely doomed to stagnate. Most species in similar conditions either gave up or had to be artificially uplifted. And that's rare. Few civilizations take on that kind of responsibility. Let me put it in perspective. Most high-gravity sapient species are compact, half the size of the average human, built to function in swarms for survival and problem-solving. By contrast, humans weren't massive by galactic standards. 2 meters was actually below average height. But physically, they were disproportionately strong. Not just compared to low-gravity species, even the tougher planetary breeds looked frail next to a human. Their movements weren't graceful, more like calibrated bursts of effort. A result of living under crushing gravity their entire lives. Their gestures came off as mechanical, precise, accelerated. They quickly earned a reputation for being physically blunt and emotionally unshaken. Except, strangely, when it came to talking about their past. That's when the blushes and squirming started. Human diplomats stumbled through centuries of conflict and civil wars, clearly embarrassed. Some of our delegates chuckled and reassured them that, no, they weren't monsters. Most civilizations bicker and fight before they unify. Humanity's shame was adorable, honestly. Still, the stereotypes persisted. Engineers from Earth had a habit of fixing broken systems by hitting them hard. Percussive maintenance was what they called it. They'd slap a ship's console and somehow, impossibly, it worked. One technician summed it up. The weirdest thing isn't that humans hit machinery. It's that it listens. Needless to say, humans became the centerpiece of galactic humor. Half the species in the bureaucracy made jokes about them. We braced for retaliation. Instead, they laughed with us. They cracked jokes at themselves, wrote parody songs, shared memes, and in doing so, melted away fears the rest of us still clung to. Jokes became endearing, not threatening. One long-standing gag. If you try to invade Earth, they won't defend their cradle world. They'll let it go. Just to regroup and come back meaner. For years, humans expanded steadily into the buffer zone. Mines. Colonies. Trade routes. Turns out, they were galactic average in intellect, but with monstrous physical stamina and a knack for resource logistics that bordered on miraculous. Their output and efficiency outpaced nearly every known race. It looked like the dawn of a golden age. Especially after they struck an unbelievably profitable trade deal with the Circast Stellar Gospel, a devout avian species obsessed with converting the galaxy to their faith. The Gospel's influence provided Earth with the raw materials and religious outreach necessary to scale production to levels humanity had never dreamed of. Then came the scandal. One of Earth's public leaders was quoted, by a rather shady alien news outlet, comparing the Gospel to Space Jehovah's Witnesses. The tone wasn't malicious, just exasperated. But it reached the Surcast speaker, and she was furious. Overnight, trade collapsed. She initiated a blanket embargo and pushed other empires to follow suit. We expected rage. Economic collapse. Retaliation. But the humans shrugged. They issued an apology. Explained the humor. Didn't escalate. But it hurt them, deeply. That deal was their economic spine. Recovery took nearly 2 decades. Only one other species joined the embargo, an isolationist empire so aggressively hostile they named themselves. Unworthy Xeno scum don't deserve to know our name or glorious heritage. Yes, that's their legal name. Yes, we have to say the whole thing. Despite setbacks, humanity held together. Then the Karkan Infinite Armada noticed them. The bureaucracy had spent years trying to keep the humans off the Karkan radar. Why? The Karkan aren't genocidal or empire-hungry. But they are militarized to the teeth, capable of fighting our entire alliance and surviving. When they saw Earth's raw physical stats, they salivated. Their ambassador stormed into our council chamber and, predictably, declared war. The humans shrugged again. They asked us for help. We declined. Risking the Karkan's wrath was suicide. We told them resistance was futile, even united. They nodded. Left the chamber. And started planning. Days later, both sides met again. The Karkan opened with a modest request. We want 10 light-years of buffer space. That's all. We held our breath. Because whatever humanity was about to do would rewrite the meaning of diplomatic retaliation. It stunned everyone just how little the war-hardened Karkan Armada actually demanded from humanity. That was, until we saw the coordinates. Their request covered 10 light-years, which happened to swallow Earth whole. Even the isolationists, yes, them, the ones with the absurdly hostile empire name we won't repeat here, looked down at the human delegate with quiet sympathy. We all assumed it would end the way every joke predicted: humanity would shrug, laugh, and surrender their homeworld without a fight. We watched the human representative stiffen, her face unreadable. The room held its breath, waiting for the familiar resignation, maybe even a dry quip. But instead, the silence stretched. And then she said, "The United Terran Republic rejects these terms. Prepare for war." That quote is engraved on a plaque that sits on my desk to this day. They had just declared war, on the most dominant military force in known space. And they did not blink. A month later, their navy looked nothing like it had before. Their shipyards roared. Hulls launched daily. Massive cruisers, bristling with new systems, rose from orbital scaffolds like revenge forged in steel. Then they proposed a full economic blockade against the Karkan Infinite Armada. A total freeze. Not one credit exchanged between Karkan space and the rest of the galaxy. Humanity begged the galactic bureaucracy to sign, a plea for any kind of support, if not military, then economic. And we did. All of us. Even the isolationists. To be honest, most of us didn't trade with the Karkans anyway. Their imports were laughable. Their exports? Explosives, weapons, adrenaline gas, not exactly tasteful commerce. So their laughter when they heard of our embargo was predictable. 2 months into the war, a formal summit was held to determine war protocols. Humans showed up with 2 leaders, General Felicia Arthas, Admiral Simon Bikel. Karkan Command sent their own representative, unnamed, stating his role alone mattered more than any identity. The humans came prepared. They presented a multi-race endorsed treaty proposal to set battle boundaries and preserve civilian worlds. The Infinite Admiral shredded the document in front of everyone. No rules. Show me your worst, Terrans. I come with claws, not restraint. Felicia and Simon exchanged a look. No drama. No resistance. Very well, they said, and walked out. The war erupted. And for weeks, humanity lost ground. Karkan fleets surged system after system. But something was off. Those massive ships Earth had been building. Nowhere to be seen. We thought they were being held back to protect civilians. Until the Karkans reached their first colony, and found it utterly defenseless. No fleet. No garrisons. The bombardment began. The rest of us were outraged. How could the Terrans abandon their own? The human ambassadors stayed calm. They reminded us they had asked for help before the war. That they had no strength left to defend those systems without our support. That silenced us. And humbled us. Then, came the transmission. Karkan Command realized too late, humanity had evacuated the colony before the attack. Their nukes. Their bioweapons. All wasted. They had obliterated an empty world. So humanity struck back, precision biological strikes on Karkan meat-producing planets. The result? Viruses. Parasites. Prion. Everything calculated to render Karkan livestock inedible, or fatal. Their meat economy collapsed. 90% of their food supply gone. And because we had embargoed Karkan space, no one could help them recover. Humanity smiled, not gloating, but grim. Their mission had succeeded. Karkans tried retaliating. Targeted Earth's agricultural planets. But this time, they met resistance. Terran troops defended their food worlds harder than anything else. Human boarding ships, built in the thousands, overran Karkan vessels. Small, dense, fast, lethal. Even superior tech couldn't repel sheer human aggression. The Karkans learned quickly. They began rigging their ships to self-destruct rather than let humans capture them. Eventually, Karkan forces torched Terran agricultural planets, but humans beat them to the punch. They burned their own fields. Slaughtered their own livestock. From orbit, you could see the firestorms. Humans, omnivores, still had hydroponic farms aboard ships. They adapted. The Karkans starved. Insider reports painted hell, riots. Famines. Cannibalism in the darker corners. In desperation, the Infinite Admiral publicly executed captured human farmers, volunteers who stayed behind to keep food flowing. Again, the Terrans didn't rage. They mourned. And kept going. We offered to sell them food. They declined. Turns out, they had produced and stored trillions of tons of rations, enough for centuries. Their logistics were terrifying. Their planning, obsessive. Those mega ships we saw them building. Ark ships. Each packed with billions. Each a vault of food, DNA, and legacy, drifting beyond reach. They weren't defending planets. They had moved humanity into space. Then came Earth's destruction. Karkan forces reached Sol and deployed a gravitational weapon. Earth cracked into 12 fragments. When the news hit the chamber floor, we braced ourselves. 4 tears. Screams. Vows of vengeance. Instead, we saw something worse. For the first time in galactic history, a human truly gave a damn. They didn't scream. They grieved. And behind the grief, something dangerous bloomed. Determination. From that point on, Terran ships pushed harder. Retook lost systems. Pounded Karkan borders. Until the Armada collapsed, starving, splintered, hollow. The surrender came quietly. General Felicia Arthas and Admiral Simon Bickel met the withered remains of the once mighty Infinite Admiral. The room fell silent. Every eye watched the humans. And saw something unexpected. The room fell silent. All eyes were fixed on the Karkan Admiral, whose voice now trembled not with rage, but weariness. When I told you we would clash without restraint, claws unblunted, I believed it honorable, he said, eyes hollow. It was the greatest miscalculation in our species' history. Human forces had pushed the Karkans to their final border. Defeat was inevitable. And now, with no illusion of victory left, the Admiral stood to perform his last duty. He removed his ceremonial blade and held it out before the Terran leaders. We formally surrender. I know we don't deserve mercy for what was done to your origin world, but I beg you, no more death. Please, spare my people. The silence that followed was soul-crushing. Humans stared back, stoic, unreadable. Some representatives of other species quietly wiped away tears. The Karkan's plea had pierced them all. Then General Felicia Arthas stepped forward. On behalf of the Terran Emirate Republic, we accept your surrender. Your lands are now our lands. Your people will be our people. And they will be treated as our own. The galaxy's jaws dropped. Stunning mercy. Accept. Admiral Simon Bikel then spoke. But for the order that fractured Earth, you, personally, will be publicly executed. The Karkan Admiral sighed. If that is the cost of my people's survival, then I accept. As human guards approached to escort him out, he asked, "May I say goodbye to my people?" Bikel replied dryly, "You'll have time. Execution will be delayed, months, maybe years. We'll need your help saving them first." They exited. The two human leaders wearing satisfied, quiet smiles. In the following months, Terran forces gloat as they took Earth. So humanity ran a calculation. They bet that the Karkans were running their food supply razor-thin, just enough to feed their population without surplus. Isolationist nations don't export anything useful, he shrugged. Explosives. Money. Pride. So they don't bother growing more food than they need. When I asked about Earth, about the grief they'd shown, he paused and took a sip of whatever filled his glass. We prepared for losses. I don't need to explain what a cradle world means. But we accepted that it might happen. And that was the moment I realized. The pain I thought I'd seen was not rage. It was resignation. Humans weren't giving a damn. They were coming to terms with inevitability. I laughed, bitter, confused, and asked how their species could function with such relentless apathy. He grinned. Then told me about a Terran animal called the honey badger. And suddenly, everything made sense. They didn't win by being stronger. They weren't fast enough, or advanced enough, or numerous enough. But they were the only species that could fight a war without flinching. Without caring. Without mercy or vengeance or righteousness. Just results. To this day, no species has witnessed a Terran truly give a damn. And with the power they now wield, I doubt we ever will. If this story moved you, intrigued you, or made you rethink what it means to be human, backhand index pointing right, subscribe now for more cinematic HFY narratives, where humanity doesn't just survive, it recalibrates the cosmos. Flying saucer, like, share, and comment to join the mission. Satellite antenna, new episodes weekly, built on grit, myth, and logic. Speech balloon, your thoughts shape our future battles. Welcome to the era of Terran dominance. This is not just science fiction, it's a declaration.